Sing. So I just want to say that in more normal times, we'd all be at the Pond House together, soaking in that Pond House ambiance and those great Pond House goodies. But for now, we're going to settle for this virtual world, and I'm hoping that we can all be together in person before too long. So a special thanks, as always, to my trusty NSP teammates, Betsy and Monica, for all of their behind the scenes assistance and their great teamwork and planning for and managing the logistics for today's session. And also here with us today are the rest of the NSP team, Melanie Tavares, our director, and Amy Studwell, our senior officer. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we dive in. We will be recording this session, and we will be placing the recording as well on our workshop's webpage, along with the slides for today's session. And Betsy will be doing this by this afternoon or tomorrow at the latest. So because we have a lot of people today on this session, which is wonderful, we ask that you please place yourselves on mute to cut down on any background noise that there may be during the session. So we've reserved about 15 minutes at the end of the session for Q&A. So if you have questions that come to mind, feel free to enter them in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. We're happy to offer this webinar free of charge, and the only thing we ask in return is please complete the survey that Betsy will be posting in the chat toward the end of the session, and it will also be emailed to you by Betsy immediately following the session. And just so that you know, we do actually read every single survey, and we really value your feedback and your suggestions on this program, but also on future programs that we might bring to you. So I am delighted that our presenter today is Renee Reed, who is coming to us from California's Bay Area, where it is not snowing and where her day job is a user experience design researcher. I had to look that one up at LinkedIn. Renee is a woman of many talents, and given all of her many and varied extracurricular activities, which include being a speaker, a mentor, and a coach, I'm guessing from having read her bio that she's one of those people who doesn't sleep very much. So she will tell you a little bit more about herself, and I will turn the program over to Renee.
Thank you so much for that intro. Good morning, or almost afternoon for all the East Coast people. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Happy Friday. Happy last Friday of the month. October is done. It's amazing. We're almost through. So welcome everyone to this webinar, this conversation. I am so happy to be able to present a topic that I am extremely passionate about, because I've been on both sides. I've been on the side of organizing, on the side of presenting and being a host. So I have a clear holistic view of online events and going from in-person to virtual. So I am going to share my screen here and we will get into it. Just a reminder, please keep your lines on mute. So if you want to just do a check really quick, at the bottom of your screens, you should see a nice little red line through your microphone there that will let you know that you are definitely on mute. Listen, it happens. It's the virtual world. It happens. So no fault, no foul. All right, so I am going to open up my deck here and we'll get into it. So again, welcome to converting your in-person events into successful virtual experiences. And I was really intentional about using the word experiences. And you're going to hear me say that interchangeably with event as well, because it's really important in these spaces that you are really focusing on the experience, not just the event, not just the title, not just the content, but really the experience. So before I jump into all of the information, I like to set the room, the Zoom room, if you will. So if you're not familiar with kind of the lay of the land of Zoom, I want to make sure that you have the best viewing experience. So at the top of your screen, make sure you're on full screen. You should be able to hover over a section or some words that say view options or viewing options, I think. Once you click into that, it'll give you the option to do side by side. This is going to allow my screen to be up on your right, I believe, or my picture, and then the actual content will be in the middle. So if you're on speaker view, it'll have everyone at the top, and then it'll have me and or I'll be at the top as well in the content dead center. But side by side gives you a little bit more of an experience where you'll see my face, you'll see my gestures, and then you'll also see the content. So again, view options at the top, click on that and do side by side. Also, if you want to keep your video on, I am perfectly fine with that. As a presenter who's usually in front of a crowd in a room and I'm looking at faces and I'm engaging in faces, it's kind of good. I've done this enough times where I'm able to multitask, talk at the camera and also look at the pictures or the faces. So if you want to keep your camera on, please feel free to do so. But of course, please stay on mute. All right, so that is setting the Zoom room. So how are we going to be spending our time this afternoon or this morning, this afternoon, your time? I'm going to give you just a quick speaker snapshot of who I am. And then we're going to jump into the 3 best practices into creating a virtual experience. And I leave it at 3 and to make sure that it's not overwhelming, that you can really synthesize and get the information and make it actionable. And it's really tactical, that you can really apply this information. You can get overwhelmed and bogged down in this space. And so I just really want to keep it at a level where it's digestible. It's not something that you're going to leave here like, what did she just say? Or what was she just talking about? Just really high level information that, again, will get you excited about creating virtual events. Then I'm going to go into a case study that's near and dear to my heart, in that I am going to be talking about a virtual event that I had the pleasure of helping to organize as part of the nonprofit that I'm a part of, that I'm on the board of, and I'll go into that. And then we'll leave time for Q&A. All right, that was a mouthful. I'm going to be talking a lot, but it'll be good stuff, I promise. As mentioned earlier, in my day-to-day, I am a user experience researcher, design researcher out here in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley. So I do that, but I'm also a speaker, moderator, organizer, and do some consulting around different things like events as well, and making sure that people are optimizing what they're doing, the speakers, their presence, how they're presenting, and the content they're presenting as well, because of course I've done this a couple of times, just a few times. Here are just a few of my events that I've had the pleasure of partaking in. But again, these were mostly in-person events. And so both small, large, big conferences, small classroom size, panel discussions, you name it, I've done it. One-on-ones type moderating panels, as well as larger panels. So going from in-person to virtual has been an experience, like I said, for myself as well. And so being in these virtual spaces, you will see right here behind me as well, my staircase has been quite a staple of many of the virtual events that I do. So I used to keep backgrounds on all the time. I just found that there was just something different when I didn't have a background on. It just made people feel a little bit more welcoming and humanized me a little bit more. And it was more inviting. And so I'll talk about that as well. But tons of virtual events. And I'll talk about, my website later, and you can see all the different events that I've had the pleasure of partaking in. So as a user experience design researcher, it's a mouthful. What I do is I help design the experience on websites and applications to make sure that the user really understands what they're doing, that they're able to accomplish their tasks, that their goals are being met, that they are having a delightful experience. And so in my day-to-day, I've just been able to leverage the skill sets, the knowledge into creating events that have really great user experience. So just triangulating all my skills all around. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. One of the major events that I recently did, if you see here, it's got about 3,000 views. This one was simulcast and broadcast on YouTube. And I'm going to be talking about all the different sizes of events, everything from a 30-minute event all the way. And you see this one was going for 2 hours, as well as events or summits that went over a couple of days. So there is just a breadth of a type of events that you'll be able to use this information that I'm giving you to apply to. And again, I've just done plenty and I love them all. All right. So looking at this picture, this is usually what we're used to, or at least I'm used to when I'm thinking about an in-person event. Someone standing in front of a screen, maybe not this huge, an audience looking at them, but such is not the case anymore, especially in these large numbers. This is what is happening now, right? In these virtual spaces. As a presenter, this is usually how I'm looking at things. I've got a screen, a monitor, a webcam. There's usually another device that you're looking at because you're trying to monitor chats or get angles to see what you're looking at. So I show this big contrast in that there is no right or wrong way to do this right now. No one has a monopoly on how to do this. Um, People are still figuring it out. And if you can see here from a user experience, this is like driving me nuts. I'm like, there's so many devices. Why did there have to be so many devices? So the main thing is, as you are transitioning, if you haven't already, or if you are, just know it's a work in progress. You just kind of got to keep at it to figure out what works. Um, and everyone is figuring it out, and that's why we're doing these type of webinars and events to help build a community around what can we do to help build these virtual event spaces. Okay, so some of the events that I've had the pleasure of organizing and partaking in and hosting or speaking at have been, like I said, these huge summits, SME subject matter expert panels, career panels. Excuse me, it's still morning over here, so I'm still in my coffee, my second cup of coffee, sorry. Conferences, historically Black college and university student conferences. So, big type of events like this, and, smaller. But I also want to indicate or show you that it doesn't have to be these big grandioso type of events. These are also a list of events, and not everything, but a good list of events that I've also coordinated, put on, hosted, spoke at, organized, all the above. So virtual paint party, interactive design class, a virtual cookout, if you can believe it, actually doing a virtual cookout. Sorry, Alexa is going to keep talking to me. I forgot to adjust her. Alexa, mute. See, the virtual world, anything can happen in the virtual world here. A head wrap tutorial. So I am infamous for my head wraps, and I used to do them in person. So now I do them virtually as well, and I'm able to reach a lot of more different people. Wind Down Wednesdays, probably one of my favorite events, but creating a space where people are just able to come together as a community and just relax and just kind of unwind. And then if you decide to have wine, or if you have a mocktail, you can do that as well. But again, creating these virtual spaces that really help build a community that's not able to do things in person. Yoga and breathing, excuse me. And then, of course, the nonprofit gala that I'm going to go into a little bit later in terms of the case study. So let's jump into it. 3 best practices into how to create your virtual experience. Again, really focusing on the experience part. You want to kind of have a mind shift in how are you creating this virtual space for your attendees and for your audience, so that when they leave, they feel inspired, they're going to want to come back again to another event. And so that we'll talk about that. So first things first, this isn't anything different from what you usually do with in-person events. So planning is so important, especially with a virtual event. So you want to be able to literally write things down and be very meticulous and intentional about the plan that you're trying to put together. It's not just as easy as picking up an in-person event and just creating a cookie cutter event virtually. Such is not the case. So some things are going to have to be compromised. Some things are not going to be able to be translated virtually. So you really have to take that time and plan out your event. So some key points to think of. First and foremost, what is the overall goal of the event? And what is the overall experience that you want to be able to provide? The goal of the event really is the driving factor, the bedrock, the framework of everything else that's going to happen. You really need to make sure that you are thinking about, is this an event that you want people to do something afterwards, take action? Is this an event that you are just trying to put content out and let people just kind of walk away whimsically or with whimsically, there we go. And that's it. Do you want them to be more hands-on, engaging? Do you want conversations, things like that? You need to make sure that you are really thinking about the goal and the overall experience, because again, that will help drive how you are producing and actually putting together an event. If it's just a casual community type building, then that's something different than having people take action. If it's just, hey, you want to get people together so that they are feeling encouraged, it's motivational. You're just trying to connect the dots with people and have people communicate, things like that. So you really want to walk through those goals of the event. Size and type of audience. So this probably will change compared to what you've probably done in person versus virtually. It can go both ways. There can be events that you usually have a lot of people at that you may have to break up a little bit smaller in a virtual event. It can also go the other way, because now with virtual, you are expanding your reach. You may have started or had an in-person event that was smaller, but now it's virtual. So that's going to actually expand the number of attendees. So you have to take those things into consideration. Are you trying to really keep it a small knit type of event with smaller numbers? With a link, if you just send out a link, a lot of people can have access to it. So are you trying to broaden your reach? Or are you trying to keep it more in the community? So those are type of things that you have to think about. In addition to that, think about the type of audience that you want to have at your event. So really kind of, understand who are the people that you are inviting and who are going to be at the event. Are these people who are tech savvy? Or are they not tech savvy? Are they people who need to be entertained a lot, right? You've got to keep them really heavily engaged. What's going to happen with that? So, people may not want to just sit and listen to someone talk like myself, but I try to keep it interesting, right? I keep moving, and hopefully you are listening or actively listening and staying engaged. So you have to really understand your audience. Who's going to be on that other side of the screen? Like I mentioned earlier, when you're in person, you can, gauge an audience really quickly. If your content is not hitting, you can make quick adjustments or something that you're doing. It's not like that virtually. So you really have to hone into the type of audience that you are serving to make sure that you are giving them what they need. Do surveys even before you launch an event. Understand what does your audience need. It doesn't have to be a guessing game. You can actually go to the people who you are trying to service or trying to provide content for and ask them what they need so that you can tailor the goal of your event, the content of your event. So it doesn't have to be a mystery, but definitely know your audience and knows the size of the audience. The larger the audience, that community aspect can get kind of lost depending on what platform that you're using. So, things like Zoom have done a great job to create these smaller groups that people can get into. So, if you have a large event, you can, break it down so people feel like they're part of it. Or even if it's a small event, right? Even if you have 20 people, you can have 5 small groups of 4 in these breakout sessions that allow more one-to-one engagement as well. So again, size and type of audience. I leaned into that because it's really important. Figure out if it's going to be fee or free. That's always a big one. This event is free, so huge kudos to the NSP committee for doing this and providing this service for free. But not all events are free. Sometimes there is a fee, especially if you're using a platform that you are paying money for. You may want to try to recoup that money in the events that you are providing. So that is also going to determine how that experience is going to be. Maybe you're charging a fee to cut down on the number of people who are attending. You know, free kind of opens a lot of different or a lot of or an increase of attendees, right? Maybe you want to charge a fee to make it a little bit more exclusive or tight knit because you know if people are paying, they are investing in their time and the content that they're trying to get. So, and then again, if you charge a fee, you really need to make, or you need to make sure that you're providing a great experience, regardless if it's fee or free. But you know, people definitely want to see value when they are paying money. People want to see value when they're spending time, even in a free event like this one. So we're going to make sure that you are getting valuable content and taking, you know, an hour and a half of your time here to spend with us today. So really, you know, think about that and do your research. This doesn't have to be a mystery. See what if other people are charging for that type of event that you are trying to put on. You don't want to price yourself out. If people are all doing, you know, the event for $20 and you're charging $100 a ticket, what makes your event $100 ticket? What is the differentiator? So you want to make sure that you're planning out, again, that fee or free. If you're just starting out and you're novice, you know, and I say this later on in this presentation, you know, it's always good to do really smaller type of mini events, mini experiences to kind of get in the groove. You don't want to just jump out sometimes, especially if you're a novice and you haven't done a lot of these events. Give yourself that room to grow. So you may do a couple of free events. And then by the 5th one or however many times, you begin to add a fee on there as well. Then the length of time of the event. So if your event has been in person and it was a couple of hours long, that may or may not translate virtually. And so I talk about this in the case study in that the in-person event was roughly about 3 hours, the gala, from, you know, sit down dinner, dancing, mix and mingle, networking. So it's been a 3-hour event. And that was extreme. That wouldn't have worked virtually at all. So we cut that down to a very efficient 1 hour. It was an hour and 15, I think we went to. So those are the type of things you want to think of. And again, going back to my earlier statement, not everything is going to be transferable one-to-one, right? You pick something up off in person and put it into a virtual. So there's going to be some trade-offs there. Time is usually one of the biggest trade-offs in making sure that you are accommodating the content in the right amount of time. Zoom fatigue is real. It literally is real. Screen fatigue is real. People are exhausted and it's tiring. So you really want to make sure that the event and the experience that you're planning is really engaging and really helpful for people. And it's worth their time and worth their money. And especially the content that you're providing, it doesn't have to, you know, drag on for hours and hours. Get in and get out, get the people what they need, and let them go on about their day. All right, so that's planning. Participating or participate. Think about the, again, the experience of your event and how you want you to show up at the event, you as the host, presenter, organizer, and how you want your audience to show up at your event or experience. So think about the participation or how you want to participate. What do I mean by that? One of the key oversights that I see a lot of people do in their events, and when I talk to them and they ask me how to plan and organize, is they totally miss the end-to-end experience of how do you want your audience to participate in the event, not at the set time, not just at the set time of the event. So not just from 11:30 to 1 per se, 3 to 5, 12 to 1, however long the event, or 12 to 12:30, to 30 minutes. But how do you want your audience to participate before, during, and after the event? Think about your event as connecting the dots, as a thread that brings people along a journey. That it's not just kind of like this blip of time and then that's it. And they just come in and you leave an event. I, as a researcher, I'm always curious and asking questions, and I'll ask people after they leave an event, what was the one thing? What was your takeaway? What did you remember? And some people are like, uh, I talked to this one person, because there's so much content coming out, and in that moment, and you're distracted. You've got Amazon, FedEx coming at the door, which has happened to me a couple of times already, where I'm doing a presentation and Amazon rings the doorbell. That may or may not happen today, so fair warning. But you want to make sure that you are creating that experience from end to end so that people are engaged. So how does that look like before? Event is coming up, on a Friday, you may start sending out communications a week before, getting everyone excited about the event. Hey, join this Facebook group. We're going to talk about, uh, events online, and we want to hear your thoughts. We're going to talk about how to create this design. What questions do you have, to make sure that we can let the presenter know ahead of time? Send out a survey even ahead of time. Hey, we're getting ready for this event in a week. What questions do you want to ask the presenter? What are you looking forward to? So you're building up that anticipation before the event is even started. And that way people are not coming into what I call like the cold seat. They're not walking in an event like, okay, what is this thing about again? What am I trying to do? You want to build up that momentum before. Again, now during, have conversations going. We have chat moderators here as well. So there's people who are going to be in there moderating the chat. You may have the event where someone is actually asking questions while the event is going on, to keep people engaged. So it's not just just being talked at, but they're part of the event too. People feel like, oh, they're doing something that's helping the event and helping the community of the event. um, Polls, Zoom has polls, right? You can do quizzes during the event as well, but these engaging type of things. And then afterwards, you kind of keep those conversations going, right? So if you've built a Facebook group, if you've got, we use a software called Slack, like a messaging service, quick messaging service. So you can build these groups and these communities that keep the conversation going. And what's great about that, it helps build content for your next event. You hear, it's the researcher me says, like, you keep your ear to the streets, right? You see what your audience is thinking, what they're talking about. You're helping to seed those conversations as well. But you begin again to foster a community and a network that's engaged in your event, again, before, during, and after, and not just kind of this one-time deal. And then also after the event, always, I mentioned this earlier about taking or creating surveys. You always want to have a survey after the event as well. Again, it's an engagement tool, but it's also a way to find out what's working and find out what's not working. And so having surveys queued up before the event starts, so that right after the event, you can just release it, is always beneficial, and it should be kind of part of your toolkit here. Sarah, I see a question from you about how to foster an engaged group afterwards with something like Slack. Yeah, Slack is really interesting in that it's all about people having to come in and check it. So you've got to really create like breadcrumbs of information and things, so that people want to come back as well. And this is just kind of through all, whether it's a Facebook group or things like that. So you have to, again, help seed that conversation. Make sure you're teeing it up during your event. Hey, we have a Slack group to make sure that you can ask questions, you can stay engaged. We post really great information there. So drop those carrots or those breadcrumbs, so that people come back and then help foster that conversation, ask questions, right? Maybe it's you know, every Wednesday, every Friday, it's something like check back every Friday for this. So you can tee up those type of conversations as well. Okay, so again, think about how you want your audience to participate before, during, and after the event. Attendee interaction and engagement. I talked a little bit about that in terms of during the event, but also, do you want your attendees to be actually be doing something during the event? So like I mentioned earlier, I've done a interactive design summit where we had people actually sketching something by hand. And so that required, directions, making sure that we were very clear about what the event would entail. So part of the setup, even prior to the event, was, hey, make sure that you have your sketchbook and your pencils ready, or your pen. And this is what we're going to be doing. So we really set up that expectation of what's going to happen. So we weren't like in the event saying, hey, now go find a pencil or find the piece of paper. So again, this goes back to the planning part, right? What's the overall goal of the event? That will help set up how you want your participants to participate. So those hands-on activities. And then, attendees were able to hold up their sketch to the camera and present back to the room. So it gave a great interaction. So it wasn't just, again, me speaking and just throwing a whole bunch of content to people. People were actually engaging, asking questions. We can see their work. We had music playing during the kind of downtime as people were working through their prompts. So again, how do you want people to interact? The paint party. The paint party was so good. Where the instructor, and I'll talk about this in a second, so I'll just go there. Again, how you want the host or the speaker to engage. So is it just content that you are speaking to, right? Are you just actually doing what I'm doing, presenting content? Or are you asking people to actually do something? Do you want them to do more collaborative work in a collaborative space? Do you want them to work on what we call Miro board? It's a software that creates collaboration. So you can do sticky notes, you can do these journey maps. So you can actually have additional tools that will help foster the experience of the event. Sarah, you have great questions. Yeah, Jamboard. Yeah, so a lot of that is, setting up the expectations. Miro is a good Miro. That's Miro. That is a good collaboration space as well. And it could be as simple as an open Google Doc. I've created this amazing kind of sticky, like it's a hack, but it works, right? Creating kind of a Google Slides, and I drop a link during the event and say, hey, go into this Google Doc and begin to put it was a woman in power class, and it was begin to put, how you feel empowered throughout the day. And everyone's working in the same space and they're writing on the different sticky notes. You can create sticky notes in Google. So it doesn't have to be, fancy software all the time. You can really create collaboration spaces using very low tech and still having a high impact as well. So lots of ways to get creative. So again, Google Docs are a great place that you can kind of create these spaces where people can put their ideas. I love to do, there's a system called Slido. Slido is so fantastic. That's Slido, that you can do real-time surveys. And so I know polls are in, polls, there we go, polls are in Zoom, But with Slido, what I like to do is you can do a word map as well. So a word cloud. So you can ask a question like, how are you feeling right now? Or how, what's one word to describe how, you feel about this event? And people go into the Slido and then they can put the word at the end of the event. I open up the Slido and actually show it. So again, different ways to engage, but that's part of the planning. And that you want to make sure that you understand the goal of the event, but then also understand how do you want your audience to participate, collaboration, if you just want them to sit back and receive the content, or do you want you as the host to be doing things as well? Are they following along? Like I said, the paint party was a really great example where the instructor was able to take a webcam, set it up. It's plugged in via USB to the computer, laptop, and it's pointed down. So you're hearing, she's voicing over the work that she's doing. But she's also got, another monitor up or another device. Remember that picture I showed you earlier with the multiple devices, where she can actually see what's happening as she's painting and she's giving us instructions. Going back, that same paint party, we got all the tools shipped to us early. So that's part of the planning process, right? If the goal is to have a paint party, how are you going to get the equipment shipped to the canvas, the paint, things like that ahead? What's your time schedule? Things like that. But all of those intricate parts play a part into how you're planning and how you want your audience to participate. And then platform. What platform do you use? So I always leave this at the end of the three things, because a lot of people think they jump to the platform first, they try to like do all the research on the platform, but it's always good again to start with what's the goal of the event, what's the bedrock, what's the framework, what do you want this experience to be, and then go to the platform. If the platform is able to do more than what you want to do, then you may add something else, right? But you want to make sure that the goal, you're not trying to fit the goal into the platform, because sometimes you can spin out and just try to do too much too soon, especially if you're a novice. And I'll talk about that here in a second. So very, very low tech. If you have Facebook or Instagram, you can just go live. Now, again, this is a little bit different. Well, not different. It depends on what your planning goal is. How do you want your audience to participate? How are you participating, right? If it's just, hey, I just want to send out content and have this conversation with people to get people engaged, then maybe it's just live. Like I'm not looking to interact with people via like face to face, like on a Zoom or something. I just want, their conversations to be in a chat form. You can do something like a live on Instagram. And it's interesting because so people don't think about Facebook Live or Instagram for events, but I can tell you some of the best, most impactful events I've been to have been on Instagram. Very, very lightweight. There is, we've seen this emergence of the virtual DJ that has created these spaces where they're playing music, they're fostering community. There's, chat around, the songs that are being played. It is incredible. No one would have thought about that 6, 8 months ago, right? In terms of this virtual space being this rich place that people can interact. And it's events. It's literally an event. DJs will send out, hey, I'm going live, for an hour set. And they come in and do their thing and then they're out. And it's brilliant. And now they've understood how to monetize it. Now they're selling merch, right? They're leaving links where you can actually go in and buy merch. I'm one of these people who buy merch from all these DJs because I just love the spaces that they've created. So I put this up here so that you know that it doesn't have to be big, grandioso productions. Again, start light. Like you want to be able to just get out there and connect with your audience and your communities. Yes, Bren, watch parties are great too. Exactly. Yeah, you can create watch parties on on Facebook as well. So it's a great way to build community. Hey, let's watch this movie together. Hey, we're going to watch this content together. Grab your community, and that's an event, right? It doesn't have to be Zoom. It doesn't have to be in some of these other platforms that I'm going to talk about. Hopin. Hopin is a really robust, excuse me, event platform. Pause. Really, really robust. But if you want to see kind of the levels that an event can get to, it's a great way to just research on what are the possibilities. Hopin really is a almost like a conference event platform, and it's HOPIN dot, I think they're .io. I have a whole reference sheet that is going to be sent out and part of the links that they put on the website as well. So all of this information will be there. But Hopin, it is incredible, and I'm going to go through a little bit as well, but a little bit robust. Not a little bit; it can get very robust. It's literally a conference type experience. You can have virtual booths. You can have conference waiting room. One of their features, which I love, is a networking feature where it's almost like a speed dating. You can set a timer as the organizer. You set a timer of like, okay, you want people to be able to talk for a minute, 2 minutes. And you go into this networking space, and every 2 minutes, you're able to meet someone, however you want, how long the networking space. But it is just a great way, like I say, to see like how much your events can scale. So if you want to start small initially and then really begin to scale, Hopin is definitely a platform that's doing some amazing work there. And of course, Zoom. Zoom, has the different tiers, so you can start in their freemium model. You can start building up, but what I appreciate about Zoom is because of the expansion of everything, they've really done a good job of creating new features to try to keep up with the mass uh, request and usage. So it's been interesting to watch them again kind of keep up. Fun fact, they're about 4 blocks from me, and they're building this huge new a little bit more than 4 blocks, but huge new building and campus because they've just grown so much. Um, but it's a great platform. It's lightweight. It's not. They've got some user experience things that they need to work through as well, but the ease of use is there. The adaptability, again, remembering your audience. Is your audience going to know how to log on or utilize it? Are they tech savvy? And Zoom has done a really good job of just trying to create lower barriers of onboarding, so it's not hard for people to get on your site. So those are the type of things that you want to think about when you're evaluating platforms or researching platforms. StreamYard. I am a huge fan of StreamYard. I'm a fangirl. They're not paying me to say this. Uh, they are just absolutely incredible in terms of what they do. So I just want to preface this to say, like, there's a lot of other type of platforms that are available. I'm just calling out these few. Again, don't want to overwhelm you, but you can always look at these and say, or do a search and say, Google. You could always do a search and put competitor for Hopin, competitor for Zoom, and then you can see like a more expansive list. Same thing, competitor for StreamYard. StreamYard and this next one, OBS, is their logo. OBS is Open Broadcast Streaming or System, Open Broadcast Software, I think. But what these two services do is it allows you to simulcast to multiple sites. So with StreamYard, you can broadcast to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. There's one more. But with one broadcast, you're able to go into these different spaces. And what's great is that on the back end, you're actually able to see all the comments from all the different places that people are engaging from. So you may have people engaging from Facebook, you may have people engaging from LinkedIn. You can actually uh, see all those comments. You're not actually seeing the people, but you're seeing the comments and engaging. And they have just a really great platform to help brand your message and brand the work that you're doing and brand your event. Like I said, huge, huge fans of theirs. And then OBS is kind of the same thing. They're a little bit more robust. StreamYard is web-based. You don't have to download anything. That's why I love them. OBS, you do have to download software. OBS is robust in that it goes to more services or third parties. So that goes to Twitch as well. So Twitch is an Amazon service, or Amazon bought Twitch or Justin TV, but it's owned by Amazon. But Twitch used to be it still is a big gamer platform in terms of like streaming and broadcasting. But more and more people are starting to see the benefit of being able to hold different type of events in spaces. Twitch has a really great platform for engagement because they do these emojis, call it something else. So the way that people are engaged are a little bit different. So it adds a different feel to the events. So what I'm showing you here is kind of very low tech in how you can start really basic and then really work up into how you can really take your events to new levels. So if you're an expert in the event field, you can really start expanding how your event is presented, getting a little bit more robust, get a little bit more branded, have a little bit more of an experience there. So really quick in Hopin, this is kind of this is an event this is the event that I hosted. I was like, which one is that? This is one event that I hosted and helped coordinate here. So this was a little bit smaller. This was about almost 150 people attended. But what I want to show here is kind of like the different aspects of it. You can have a sponsors list. You can have the whole schedule, booths, which was really great. So you can actually see these virtual booths that sponsors can set up. So if they're running any type of promotions or discounts, they can actually show that information here. And then there's also, like I said, there's a networking feature as well. This is another event that I was a speaker at, a lot bigger. This one, if you look at the number up here, over 6,000 attendees, not a small conference whatsoever. The one before has always in person been roughly about 100, 125. So they grew just a little bit. This conference has only been about probably 400 in person. No, I think they're a little bit bigger. So maybe they're like 400, 500 in person, and went all the way up to 6,000. So huge, huge, huge jump, huge reach. What was great about this is they made this free. It was brilliant. They made it free this year. Last year it wasn't free in person. This year is free because now they've got 6,000 people that they can reach out to and engage with after the event and keep those conversations going and actually build a whole new community. And that's what they've done. So now they're able to put on mini events throughout the year versus before in person, it was really about these big extravagant events, right? Renting out big ballrooms and, big spaces. Now with these mini events, they create more engagement over time. So this was brilliant for them. I'm just so happy. I know the coordinator actually did this event in person last year in New York, and just to see how they thought through really about how to create this event. And I talked to them about, and I helped kind of consult them in terms of how to really flip this event to virtual and make it more engagement in terms of the content that they were providing as well. Zoom meeting or Zoom webinar. Yeah, so again, it's a matter of what is the goal of the event. Are you just looking to share content and just kind of present content out with very minimal engagement? One of the benefits about Zoom webinars is a lot more control as to how things are presented, the audience, things like that. versus a Zoom meeting. There's also some cost differences there as well. So like keep that in consideration. But you want to just kind of go back to what's the goal of the event. Do you want it more engaging? So one of the main difference, and I don't think Zoom has released this yet, Zoom webinar doesn't have breakout rooms. Only Zoom meeting does. So if that's a huge part of your event, that would be one of those deciding factors there, right? Because if you want to create those smaller communities of people, those breakout rooms are really special because it's more intimate. Versus a Zoom webinar, it does give them more like that conference effect where you're just kind of watching the speaker as well. So keeping those things in consideration. That's one of those requests that we've asked, like, hey, can you get breakout rooms for Zoom webinar? And I think, right, Zoom webinar doesn't. One of those, I'm pretty sure it's a webinar that doesn't have breakout rooms. Zoom meeting does. And again, webinar really is that. Usually the whole idea of a webinar is that you're just speaking, right? And the audience is just listening and consuming the content versus a lot more engagement back and forth. And that's where the meeting experience is. All right. I'm gonna do a quick time check. All right. So 12:30 your time. Great. So about 10 more minutes here and we'll open it up. Open the floor to more questions. This is great and great questions coming to the chat. All right. So also with Hopin, again, just giving you kind of the lay of the land of what it looks like. They have I'll go here. This is the networking type of experience. I know it's kind of fuzzy. This is kind of their mocks here. But on the left, you can see kind of the menu of all the different parts, the stages. Again, this is really a conference platform. So you can have multiple stages. So if you have multiple speakers, the event that I just showed you, the one for 6,000 people, they had multiple stages. So they had talks going on in different, at the same time. So I was speaking on design and research, and there was another stage about entrepreneurship and AI stuff. So depending on the tracks that people wanted to go into, it depends on the stage, and attendees can flow in and out. It was a very conference type feel. So quick pricing, this is what it looks like. Again, you can try it out for free with limited, of course, the freemium, that's what we call it, the freemium model, just to kind of see what it's about. And then it goes up. And this is not something that you want to jump out the gate with. This is not necessarily a novice type experience. This is very robust, but it gives you some ideas of how you can think bigger, right? Of how you want your events to look like over time. And, even though we're in these new times as new normal, what this really has opened up is the possibilities. And, even when things hopefully get back to somewhat of the new normal and in-person events, online events are not going anywhere anytime soon. And I want to talk about that as well in terms of doing hybrid events and understanding being able to provide virtual type experiences are going to be important. Here's an example of StreamYard. So this is an event that I did with a couple of my alums from Savannah State University in Savannah, Georgia. We were doing, again, the HBCU, Historically Black College Students Conference or talk. And here with StreamYard, see, I was able to brand it. So I've created, and this was something like what you see in the background, I created with PowerPoint. I just took some logos from the school and then created this background. And yeah, so with StreamYard, you can really elevate your event and have this different experience. Along the bottom where you see SSU Virtually Amazing Homecoming. So this event was, this was our virtual homecoming event. I apologize. So homecoming is a big event. It's usually in person. We couldn't do it this year, so we did everything virtually. So part of the homecoming event was creating this panel of students, alums who had graduated who now work in Silicon Valley. So along the bottom, you see SSU Virtually Amazing Homecoming. That's actually a ticker. So StreamYard creates these really great engagement informations where you can have a ticker that goes along, that you can have messaging, that you can change on the fly, you can preload it ahead of time, and just activate it. So it's again, engaging type of platform. So you're not just kind of sitting back listening to content, you're also reading content as well. And so another example here, you can have up to 10 people on the screen at the same time with StreamYard, depending on which uh, price bucket you have. So in this one, I think we had 5 people for this panel. But you can see very quickly how, it changes. There's different views you can have. I didn't put it on there, but where my name is, you can change that information on the fly as well. I can do a single view with just myself. I can do this double view. So I've done this enough where I can manually do this myself, but it's always good if you're doing these larger type of events, if you have some other hands to help you so that you're not trying to produce and present at the same time. Get people who are really enthusiastic about creating virtual events with you, part of your organization, things like that, and have someone be the producer, that they can do kind of these things of bringing the content up, bringing the guests in. That makes a world of difference. Like I said, I'm a one woman show a lot of times, and so I'm able to like do this because I've done this enough. But it's always good to have someone to have an extra pair of hands with. Here's their pricing model for StreamYard as well. Again, you can have a free model. Highly recommend that. Just try it out. Stream on your Facebook page. YouTube channels are a little bit different. You have to have a certain number of subscribers to actually stream on YouTube. And then on LinkedIn, you also have to have LinkedIn Live in order to actually stream on LinkedIn Live. But it is a huge benefit to stream on Facebook. So on Facebook Live, what I showed you earlier, really low tech, really simple. StreamYard gives you a little bit more of what we call the zhuzh. You just the way to zhuzh it up a little bit. You can create your backgrounds depending on, again, your stream or your model here that you get if you go for basic or things like that. Okay. So, hybrid moments. So this is what I was thinking. I just want to call this point out. Regardless of what happens and things start trickling back and we're in person, it's going to be really important to think about how to create hybrid events. There's just some people who are not going to feel comfortable about doing things in person. So this is an opportunity to definitely think about how you can create hybrid events in person and also virtually. And so what's important to think about that is how do you create a you can create a connected experience. So is there something that you start online that's maybe a part one, and then part two is in person? Do you want to do something totally separate? Do you do a full event online and then do something completely different in person? So you may be serving two separate different type of audiences. But think about how to really embed that into your programming. Maybe again, as things start going back, and I'm not sure, how Connecticut is, but at least for California, we're doing these different cycles of like what we're allowed to do, right, in terms of in-person events. But there may be kind of like in the program saying, all right, twice a month, there's always going to be a virtual event. We may have these in-person events, 3 times a month, every weekend, but at least twice a month, there's going to be a virtual event. And you really begin to think strategically about the content, the information that you're putting out. And then again, survey your audience, see what they need, see how they're responding. But definitely start thinking about it. It doesn't have to be either or. Future thinking, right? Right now, it probably can only be one, but future setting, it doesn't have to be either or. You can literally have hybrid type of events and experiences. Okay, I'm going to run through this case study as I drink my water. And then before I go into the case study, drop a 1 if you've heard something for the first time in the chat. If there's something that I've said that you're just like, I never knew that. Or if you've never heard of one of the, I love it. All the ones. Yay, great. I meant to say this earlier when I was asking about the services or the platforms. Yeah, StreamYard. Yeah, StreamYard is a gift. It is incredible. What I love about StreamYard too is they do every week, they do kind of with the founders and the creators of StreamYard. They do this kind of like find out the latest about StreamYard. You can ask them questions. So they've really built a really great platform and experience. You can join a StreamYard group as well to find out the latest and greatest. They give you like best practices and tips. It's a really great experience. Again, you don't have to jump out there and start with StreamYard, but it's super user friendly, like super. And it's a way to help like level up your events, especially if you're doing anything on Facebook. Also, I forgot to mention, you don't have to broadcast. You can actually create an event and record it on StreamYard, and then post it up on your web page if you want to do, again, webinar type stuff. With webinar, when you're just presenting the content out and you want people to watch it or receive it or just consume the content. So with StreamYard, you can have that kind of branded experience and record, a panel, a discussion, maybe it's just you talking, and then have that download it and then upload it. So the only thing there is that you're not getting that live interaction with your audience, but you're creating this really cool, like I said, branded type thing that you can have as part of like your toolkit and your content that you can send out in addition to your actual event. So I look forward to hearing all the good StreamYards that everyone uses. Okay, so I'm going to go to this case study, and then after that, we'll go into Q&A. So yes, thank you. They are me here. Sorry, getting all of that ready. All right. So virtual gala. So case study here, Opportunity Junction. It's a nonprofit that I'm on the board of here in California, and we help the Contra Costa, it's a community here, residents get reskilled and get confident about their career paths. And we have different careers, job training for admin and healthcare positions. And it really helps people get on the road of self-efficiency, to be able to take care of themselves and their families. So really passionate about this work that we're doing. And so this year, Opportunity Junction's been around for 20 years, supporting the community. And one of our biggest fundraisers is a gala called the Imagine Gala. That's usually every year in person at a really nice country club, very fancy schmancy. Sit down dinner. I think it's like 5 courses. Like, it's so fancy. But it's also a fundraiser. So we have silent auctions, things like that. And you see some wine here. There's dancing, there's networking. Like I said, and this event is usually 3 hours long, but we couldn't have it in person this year. So we had to make the pivot to a virtual event. Again, 20 years. And this was our big 20-year anniversary. So we had this amazing theme of the Roaring 20s. So everyone, for the first time, we had this theme where we wanted everyone to dress up in the Roaring 20s. It was called our Roaring Success. And so we were so happy to get going. And so what we had to do really early was get the messaging out that the event was going to be held virtually. So this is a shot of the online experience where we had to make sure to let the community know that we were pivoting. I'll go back. We actually first thought about just canceling it altogether and not doing it because we were in this really tight time frame once we finally made the call that it wasn't going to happen. It was originally supposed to be in April, and shelter in place in California had just hit in March, end of February, March. So, we were almost 6 weeks out. And so we were just like, we're just going to cancel it altogether. We'll come back next year and we'll just say, sorry, we couldn't do it. But we hunkered down, the marketing community that I'm on, hunkered down, a group of amazing 10 people that were just like, we can't do this. Like, we've had it every year. Like, what can we do? Let's get creative here. So here's just a quick comparison of what we were able to do to translate it from a country club to a Zoom experience. So Usually it's around 200 local attendees. We were able to get about 100 attendees across the US. So we broadened our reach of people who were able to attend, which was the first time we were able to do that. So we got a new set of eyes on the organization. So people who don't even live in California were interested in the work that we were doing. So that was a huge win. Again, 3 hours in person versus 1 hour. I mean, it was a lot to try to condense, but we understood the importance of creating an experience that wasn't cumbersome and wasn't drawn out for a long time. All presenters were live or usually live, so they're doing their speeches and everything. What's really great that we were able to do is we did a combination of pre-recorded videos and people actually speaking live. And that's something that I highly recommend, again, as you're building out your events. Not everyone needs to be live in person. If there's someone that you really want to have speak for a couple of minutes, or if there's a piece of content, a commercial type thing that you want to run, get that on video and just play it during the event. It's a great way to break it up and always do a tech check. I was talking to the NSP crew in the beginning, how it's always important to do a tech check in the beginning, just to make sure things are operating. So, if you're utilizing any type of videos during your events, you definitely want to check that out as well. But highly recommend kind of doing a mixed media approach when you're doing these type of events. And the planning, we were 5 months out and we had to decrease that substantially to about 8 weeks to finally get it off the ground. And so we were able to launch a virtual experience in May. Quick highlight here. The previous year, our total raise was 80,000. We had a stretch goal that we had set for in person for 120,000. And we decided to keep that goal and said that we're still going to meet that goal. We wanted to keep the 20, theme going. And we were able to, it's actually more than 120,000. We actually made our goal. So we had less people and had more of a reach. And also just calling out here, we were able to keep our corporate sponsors. So we were able to keep them engaged. And that was one of the things that we said, like, we probably would have lost the corporate sponsors if we just said, hey, we're not going to do it. And we didn't want to lose that money. So we're just like, we have to do something. So it was just a really valiant effort by the whole team. One of the things, like as I did earlier in this, as you're doing your events, always make sure that you're helping your attendees along. Give them instructions on how to use the platform that you have them engaging with. As I set it up in the beginning of like, hey, make sure you have your viewer options on, things like that. You want to make sure that you have, you want to make sure that you definitely help your audience along. That's going to help them get engaged. If they don't know how to use the system, they're just probably going to sit back and just not do anything. So point out things like chat, where to go, ask questions, things like that. We also incorporated a auction site. So Greater Giving, and this is going to be one of the resources that are going to be in the list as well. Greater Giving is an online auction site. Again, we usually do a silent auction in person. We were able to do a auction online as well during the event, and the auction ran after the event as well. So we had it set it up before. I think it was open for a couple of days before the event, and then closed later on. Actually, later on that night, it closed after the event. But it was a great way to keep everyone engaged and excited. That Valentino purse right there with the scarf, I was in a tight bidding war because I wanted, because it's vintage. But we were just so amazed about how much we were actually able to get for a lot of these items. And we would have probably not gotten that same price in person as well. I think one of the largest tickets we got was over 1,000 for one of these items. Also, these are just kind of more of the items. So we had, gosh, over, I think, almost 50 items. And then what helped as well is we provided a visual aid during the actual event to let people know. So yeah, bidding owl is also another good one. Exactly. So again, these ones I'm giving you are just a short list. Always put in, as you're Googling or looking at these companies, competitors of also, and then at least it'll give you more of extensive list. Again, not trying to bog you down with all the different types of information. So thanks, Joe, for calling that out. Also providing visual aid during the event, right? This is our goal. So we made sure it was very clear what we were trying to do. So it wasn't a mystery about, how much we were trying to raise, what this virtual gala was about. We were very, very transparent in that. And then this is one of the screens from it. And then you'll see we created a background. We still had everyone dressed up in their roaring 20s. So we really wanted to keep that type of energy going. Again, this is one of the screens. I think we had about 6 or 7 different screens going. All right. Key takeaways. I won't read through all these because these are going to be available online as well. One of the key things is make sure you're doing a run of show for your event. Always, when you're planning, you always want to make sure that you do a dress rehearsal. Go through the tech. Make sure you have a script. It just makes things go a lot easier. Um, Having designated people to manage chat and tech is extremely beneficial. It is always good to have multiple hands on deck. So as a presenter, you can concentrate on presenting. Someone else could actually, look at the chat. If someone comes in Zoom, you can provide co-hosts. So if someone comes in and they're not muted and you're the presenter, you don't have to worry about scrambling to try to mute the person who comes in. Another host can do that. So where you are able to get help in your organizations, even family members. Listen, I have a 22 now year old daughter. And when I'm doing my presentations, I make sure that she's on another laptop somewhere handling a lot of this stuff as well. She's now like my social media strategist. So, I make sure that there's multiple hands on deck, and that actually includes family as well. So don't be shy to ask if people are willing. And then, you can actually get interns or things like that. Okay. Let me keep going here. The cross-platform experience was really helpful. We actually did a pre-video before the event. We had a how to create a mocktail and a cocktail, a signature cocktail for the event. So again, remember before, during, and after experiences of how you want people to participate. So before the event happened, we sent out a link to the video a couple of days, maybe a week before, to say, hey, get your signature cocktail ingredients ready. During the event, we're going to do a toast. So you'll have the cocktail. And it was just a fun way to engage people as well. So again, think about cross-platform experiences of where you can engage people. Like I said, Slack, Zoom, Google, things like that. So it doesn't have to be necessarily just one experience all the time. Big takeaway here, low tech, high impact. Low tech, high impact. Think of that, low tech. Doesn't have to be grandiose, but make the impact large. All right. We'll skip that. And then tying this up in a bow, the main thing is be creative and have fun. Like I said earlier, no one has a monopoly on this. No one is doing this perfectly. So just live and learn, get out there, tweak it, do iterations, and then share your best practices as well. Don't think of it as an obstacle of doing these virtual events. Think of it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to engage a whole different audience. It's an opportunity to get more creative in what you're doing and how you're presenting. You want to make sure that you have different ways that you are delivering your information. Yes, Carol. Yes, Canva is huge. Like Canva is a great way, and that's one of the resources I indicate as well. Canva is a great way to build your decks and I'm just using PowerPoint here, but when you're doing your presentations, you can have these really great slick designs without even knowing how to design. Matter of fact, I think that Savannah State one that I use actually had I used Canva for part of it. For one that I don't think it's the one that I showed. Main thing is you got this. You can definitely do this. Okay, really quick. So if you have LinkedIn on your phone, and this is another great way, I'm just going to show you something that you can do as part of your event. If you have the LinkedIn app on your phone, open the LinkedIn app. And once you open the LinkedIn app and go to the search bar, there's a little icon at the top right. When you click on that icon, your camera should open. And if you've used this before, you should be able to scan the QR code that's on the screen. If you haven't, you just have to enable camera. And once you enable the camera and you scan this code, my LinkedIn profile will come up. Click connect. And if you don't see connect, click on the three dots and you'll see connect and then connect with me. I always like to show this because you can build this into your own presentation and events as well, depending on your audience. If you know your audience may be, more professional or things like that, you have your own code. So again, go to the LinkedIn app, go to the search bar, top right, you'll see a little icon of a QR code. Click on that. It'll open up your camera and you should be able to scan. Actually, iOS phones, Apple phones, you can actually just open your camera and it should, if you have the app on your phone, once you scan this, it should open the app. But once you open the camera on the QR code, you'll actually see a space or a place at the top where it says my code. You click on my code, you will actually see your own QR code. So you can download that and make that part of your presentation as well. And then here are my social media links. So please definitely reach out to me if you have any further questions. I'm excited to see what you are going to be creating in your event, especially with StreamYard and Canva. Happy to answer any follow-up questions. Like I said, reach out to me on any of the social media sites that you see here. You'll see a resource link. And again, that's going to be part of the deck that will go up on the site later, but it's going to have some links to a lot of the companies that we talked about and some additional event reminders about, again, starting small, then building up. Remember to create templates. And I talk about this in the Canva, with Canva, you just kind of don't reinvent the wheel. Just use these over and over again so that you have the ability to repurpose them and use them throughout all your different events. Thank you. We still got time to spare for questions. I did it. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop sharing. Now, I was telling the group earlier, the sun does its own thing. So now the sun's really washing me out here, but here we go.
I have a question for you.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Nice job today.
Thank you.
I had to pop off for a little bit, but I popped back on. Are you finding, one of the things I'm finding is that there's some fatigue in the, in the pivot to virtual. It's almost like you tell your constituents, oh, we're pivoting to virtual. And you can almost feel that they feel like there's a sea of virtual coming their way. Are you finding that there's some fatigue there?
So the main thing, and I put this in, it's going to be in the deck, I didn't talk about this, is you have to make your event uniquely yours. And you have to make sure you're thinking about how you're differentiating your event. Because like you said, I mentioned this earlier, that there's a lot of screen fatigue, there's a lot of Zoom fatigue. So if people are going through event after event and event, and it's the same thing, they're tired. But what are you doing to add something unique? Are you adding music? Are you adding a break? I always add a dance break in my event. And people are just like, a what? Yes, a dance break. Take 10 seconds and just do your favorite little hand move, do a hand dance, whatever. And it just breaks up the mood. Like you just create a space. And so that's what you want to do. Make the event uniquely yours. And like I said, there was something about me not having a background on that actually kept people a little bit more engaged, because I would be like, there's my staircase. Where do you think it goes? Isn't it weird? Like, so it just became conversational pieces. So it wasn't just this, I'm just throwing content out and just words. So, yep. Hopefully that helped, Wendy. Excellent.
Renee, there are some questions in the chat that I'll share with you. So Anita was asking, during your case study, what did you do to keep your corporate sponsors engaged?
Great question. So one thing is always key, no matter what, is constant communication with your sponsors, right? How are you engaging your sponsors just throughout the year? Are you keeping them abreast of like how their funds are being used? Are you keeping them, in contact and what's happening, just the latest and greatest, so that it's not this kind of at the last minute, hey, by the way, we're going to have to keep those funds. So, so that was one thing. We just always nurtured the relationship continuously. So by the time we said, hey, we're going to pivot to a virtual event, given the times that we were in and our community that we serve, it was so important for us to let them know, like, hey, now more than ever, we need these funds because people are freaking out because, they're not going to be able to come in and, train in person. A lot of these people did not have home computers. So we were able to talk them through how we're making this transitions and how what the funds are going to look like in this virtual space. We needed laptops, right? We needed a whole new type of experience to service the community that we service for these job placements. And so we weren't necessarily we create job placement. We weren't providing financial means to people who were out of work, but we were at least helping keeping them skilled. So really making sure that that talk track and that narrative was tight in terms of what we were going to do, and that was hugely beneficial.
Great. And then there are a couple of auction-related questions, one from Sarah and one from Dina. Sarah asks, is it more effective to have auctions run longer or keep them fairly short window for bidding? And then Dina is asking what to do about auction items that are experiences like game tickets, day trips that are no longer options given the pandemic.
Yeah, so a lot of our options. So I think we had a Tesla tour. I think we had a cruise as well, and maybe some airline tickets. And so we went back to the vendors and said, hey, can you make sure you extend the expiration date through at least 2021? Like that was our first ask. And then we said, hey, is there a way to negotiate at that time if something else happens? Can we push it to 2022? Some of them said yes. Some of them said at least to 2021. So we made that request very early on to make sure that people had that window of opportunity that they were able to take advantage of. In terms of length of time, we released the auction items, like the sneak peek early. So that's where I say, like, yes, definitely make sure people know kind of what's on the docket early so they can kind of go through, they can figure it out if they have questions. But the bidding portion, we kept really tight. We did not let that draw out. So we did a lot of communication up front about what items were available, really talked it up. Like I said, that Valentino purse, it's so gorgeous. Still, you see, I'm still upset that I didn't get this, right? And that was back in May. So there was like a lot of, hype around it so that by the time it was time to bid, everybody was ready to go bid for those items. Yeah. And that's, again, going back to the point about before, during, and after of how you're thinking about engaging your audiences. That's a really perfect example of that.
Great. And then Alicia had asked, can you give examples of successfully incorporating networking into an event?
Yeah. So breakout rooms are great, but breakout rooms have to be not monitored, but you have to create kind of the content in those breakout rooms. You can't just be like, hey, go in this breakout room and go meet these 4 strangers that you've never seen before. Like, you have to give them tasks and information. Also, if you are able, have room monitors or people who are like part of your team, assign them to those rooms so they can help engage the conversations, right? Get it started. Have those action items out. Have those icebreakers ready. What are those questions that you want them to do? What are those activities? Also, a huge mistake that I see people do in these events, they give kind of the slide of like, hey, this is what we want you to do in your breakout rooms. They put people in the breakout rooms and then the people have no visibility of what they're supposed to do. They get in the rooms, they're like, do you remember what that slide said? Did you take a screenshot? It never fails. So you always want to at least drop a link into the chat so people have access to it so that when they're in these breakout rooms, they can pull it up. Or again, if you have if you have room monitors, that someone who's part of your team who's assigned to these different rooms, they can bring up the information and share the screen. But don't just send people off in the corner and be like, go be friends. And people get there like, what are we supposed to do? So again, having activities, having icebreakers, set up the expectation beforehand. Again, if you have kind of these communities or conversations that are happening before the event, let these kind of networking things be a continuation of that. Hey, don't forget during the event, we're going to break you out in these rooms and talk about this or have this activity, then come back and then share and things like that. Also, create a way for people to connect. People are always like, well, who are you? Who are you? Like, you want to make sure that you say, hey, I've created like just a general, with permit people, if they want to do this, again, a general Google file to say, if you want people to connect with you, drop your LinkedIn profile into this doc. And then people are able just to go through and connect. You'll see a lot of times in chat, people just like, connect with me on LinkedIn. And then like the chat just starts getting long and then you miss half of the people. So those are great ways, again, before, during, and after, to keep that networking going.
Yeah. And just along the lines of auctions, Renee, there was a question about, did you allow a bidding pre-event?
Yeah, so they were able to bid before bidding started before the gala started. So the actual gala event was only an hour. So I'm sorry, yeah, I should have cleared out that. The gala was only an hour 15, I think. So bidding, we gave like the preview of what was on the docket. Then bidding opened up, I think, 48 hours, maybe, no, 24 hours before the event. So we had a window before the gala. We had a window during the gala, and then we had a window after the gala.
Great. And one other question from Portia is there a formula for text versus visual versus audio?
Yeah, like I said, I'm a big fan of like multimedia stuff. So there may be, and if you saw my deck, there's some things where I just had like a word slide, like a transition slide. I'll just have a word. I'm a big imagery person, so I love big visual, colorful images. So Unsplash, I need to add this to the resource. Unsplash is UN splash, and it's free pictures and content, and they're slick, and you can download them. I know Adobe has some really, really nice ones, and I think they're paid. There's a couple other free sites, but Unsplash is one of my favorite ones that have, it's kind of leaned towards millennial type content and look and feel, but they have some really nice pictures on there that you can just upload. Yeah, it's Beth. Isn't that great?
Great. Well, I think we're just about at time. So thank you everyone for being here. It's really nice to see at least some of your faces. As Betsy has been posting in the chat, you'll be getting the survey if you haven't clicked on it already. We will put the slides, the recording, and I think a transcript of the chat. Someone asked about that because people were posting great resources. We'll try to post that on the site as well. And I want to give a big thank you to Renee for helping us put this session together. Yes, a little virtual applause. We appreciate it. Thank you so much, Renee. And again, this is one of the advantages of our virtual world is we could bring Renee in to be with all of you from her comfortable home. So stay safe and well, everybody. Thank you so much. And thank you, Renee.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend.